We should redo both of that.
Yeah.
We should redo the whole thing.
Do the whole podcast over. Start from zero. Go back to the first episode.
Frankly, I did think about that.
Hey everybody, and welcome to Who Is My Doctor?
Who is my doctor?
Another episode of Who Is My Doctor, a Doctor Who podcast. I am your host, Zach, and I know a lot about Doctor Who.
And I'm your co-host, Cassie, and I know nothing.
And together we're going through now the third episode of Series 1 of Doctor Who, an episode called The Unquiet Dead.
Ooh.
It is a spooky name.
Oogie spooky.
So, just to give Cassie a little bit more than just a name, I like what we did last episode where you got just a little still frame they have up here on the streaming service that we're using.
Which does put Rose in a very, vampy sort of gothic look from what it looks like, an off-the-shoulder sort of number with her hair tied back.
So, between that and the name, Cassie, why don't you tell us what you think The Unquiet Dead might be about?
Oh, okay. I can imagine, based off of that, and because Rose seems to be looking down at what I can only assume is a dying Victorian child. Therefore...
Rose Tyler, you could save me if you borrow one of my newspapers.
Please push me outside so I can get some fresh air for the last time.
The consumption hasn't taken me quite yet.
If only I could see me mum and me pop one more time.
If only I could perchance go to the year 5000.
Billy, what's wrong? What would you have in the year 5000?
Nothing. Just thought maybe someone here could help me.
I just thought it'd be fun. There has to be a cure for my disease in the year 5000.
So
yeah, that's my that actually does filter into exactly what this cast prophecy is. Right now, the running total is I've gotten 2 out of 4 guesses correct.
yeah, you're or you could say you've got one episode right and one episode wrong, but each time you broke them down into 2 main bullet points.
Yes. So definitely this is a time travel episode.
Okay. I mean, that would make sense. They did just travel into the year 5 billion, and so now
yeah. Well, okay. So this is a time travel back in time episode.
Yeah.
This is we are going backwards in the old wibbly wobbly timey wimey.
Oh, you know another Doctor Who thing.
I know that one because I remembered somebody saying it a lot in my college, and I thought it was just a silly thing she was saying. Turns out.
You're going to feel so good when we get to that episode.
Ooh, yes, I know. I don't know which doctor says
Pull out a Captain America, I understood that reference.
Exactly. Backwards in time, Victorian era. I'll put that down as one cast prophecy. We're going backwards to the Victorian era because we are trying to save somebody. Or we are trying to speak with somebody who is
So you think
dead.
they intentionally dropped off in the 1960s in the Victorian?
Sure, 1960s. People are still dying of consumption then.
You think they intentionally dropped in the Victorian era because they're going there with purpose. It's not just let's take a look around the 1860s and see what happens.
Yeah, I think that this one is intentional. I think based off of the previous episode, Rose is done with the future. She wants to keep it a little bit more grounded, and I'm sure that the doctor is also like, you know what? This poor girl is in a whirlwind of stuff, and we're in too deep. We still have so many episodes ahead of us.
We do indeed.
Gotta keep her happy.
All right, so your main predictions are
purposeful travel back in time to Victorian era.
Okay. Would you like me to give you something that could be your second idea?
Sure.
So in this time period, they meet a famous historical figure.
Charles Dickens.
Okay, so your guesses are...
Wait, no. I thought you were going to tell me the historical figure. I didn't know that was my guess. No.
I'm gonna let you decide now. Do you want that to be your guess?
No, I don't. I resign that. I take it back. I put my ballot in, but before I dropped it, I took it right back out.
Oh no, there's ballots everywhere.
They're really mad at me at the Burbank Library because I just can't drop my ballot into the thing. So I've started mailing it in so that way I don't have to deal with the ballot collectors anymore. They'll get you.
All right, so are you just going to stick with the one guess for this episode then?
No, I would like to do two. This is the thing. Who is the historical figure? Can you give me a hint about who the historical figure? Okay, if you want me to
tell you, I will tell you. No. You are absolutely right. It is Charles Dickens.
Oh, I win! Immediate win!
No, you said it didn't count.
No,
I gave you so many opportunities to keep that going.
No, please let me have this one. Please, Zach, please. I'm dying of being wrong.
I feel like I gave you...
No, please, Zachary.
Tell you what,
my dying wish.
Tell you what, we'll call it a half point. You got 2.5 now.
Thank you.
Here, take your shilling and fuzz off.
I can buy myself a bag of bread.
Okay, I've got a
feed for myself and my birds.
I've got a thing we could go for. What do you think the Unquiet Dead specifically is in reference to?
Okay, so if we're doing Dickens, Dickens didn't have anything to do with zombies.
So we could assume just from the way it's described that it has something to do with dead people. So you can just tell me what you think is happening to the dead people to make them quote-unquote unquiet.
Something... Okay, here's my guess for the Unquiet Dead. People aren't dying?
Okay, so you think that things kill them but they don't die. Like something that should have killed them doesn't, is what you're saying.
Yes, there are simply too many people.
Famous Victorian era problem. There are too many people.
Like that's the only thing that I can muster up.
There are too many of us. Some of us have to die of consumption or we can't sell enough papers.
There's only one blanket and 6 of us trying to share it.
It's my turn with the blanket.
Yeah, you know what? Yeah, I'm gonna cash in. I'm dropping my ballot in. There are too many people. People aren't dying fast enough.
Okay, so why don't you just very emphatically state so everyone's clear?
There is sickness that is there is a sickness that is not good. No, I don't know. Okay, so my prophecy, I might just have to nail it in with there is a sickness period the end. Like a virus. Maybe it's like a super bad virus that is, killing thousands and thousands of people. And they need to go and stop it before it kills too many people. Okay. Charles Dickens is sick.
Charles Sickens.
Cool skateboard trick, Charles Sickens.
Thanks.
I really liked when you wrote that half pipe on 2 books.
Everyone look, I call this my Oliver Twist.
There you go. Good job. You did it. Victorian era zombie virus.
Okay, so there's a virus
yes.
that is raising the dead like zombies.
Yes.
Okay.
That is what I'm yes, you did it.
Okay.
I did it all by myself. Okay, so only me.
All right, so we've got your 2 answers locked in here. I will tell you this is the first episode that you've seen that has a new writer. The first 2 episodes were both written by the new showrunner, Russell T. Davies. Mm-hmm. This is written by a man named Mark Gatiss. And this is an interesting thing, I think, that you'll enjoy. Both Russell T. Davies and Mark Gatiss are both openly gay men. And so as such, this is, as far as I'm aware...
Is it openly gay back in 2005
yes, even in 2005.
Whoa.
Like, Russell T. Davies has been out, as far as I'm aware, his entire life.
If nothing else, it does open the doorway of acceptance.
Yeah,
and that is an overarching theme, perhaps, is just...
And, maybe...
Not understanding somebody, not knowing exactly where they come from, who they were, who they are, but accepting them because, you know.
Yeah, and I think there's
as a queer person, being accepted is like a big thing for me. So
it's also kind of funny because they had Russell T Davies grew up where this episode was filmed, and so he had always pictured Doctor Who coming to that area and he would picture the Doctor having an adventure there. So of course, the episode where they finally get to film there, Russell T Davies did not write it. Well, we have Cassie's, what was it you called it? The Cass Prophecy?
This is the Cass Prophecy. I have my Cass Prophecy locked and loaded. The ballot is in, and nobody is chasing me out of the library.
We have the Prophecy of Cassandra handed to us, and it is time to find out if this prophecy is right or wrong with Episode 3 of Doctor Who, The Unquiet Dead.
Woo. Oh, wait, if there's zombies, then it should be... That's the sound that brains make when you're slurping them out of a straw.
Who is My Doctor is brought to you by Two Kids Trenchcoats. Hey kids, do you have a really old face and a friend with really strong legs? Well, do I have just the thing for you. With a Two Kids Trenchcoat, you can do all the fun things adults like us get to do every day, like seeing an R-rated movie, paying taxes, crying about the housing market as you realize that at this point in your parents' lives, they had an 8-year-old and a 6-year-old while you struggle to take care of a couple of cats. And you can't help but feel like that's somehow your fault, when you know in your heart it's society that's let down your entire generation, but knowing that and feeling that aren't the same thing, so the guilt and despair build up until you're crying in the bathtub with the shower off. And obsessing over houseplants. Yes, you too can join us in the existential despair that is adulthood while sitting on the shoulders of your strong friend, you old-faced freak. For a limited time, each Two Kids Trenchcoat comes with a free fake glasses-mustache combo. Hilarious and deceptive. Two Kids Trenchcoats, because two kids are better in a coat. And we are back from the Unquiet Dead.
Ooh-wee, sci-fi ghost story.
Sci-fi ghost story, and so I think we need to first talk about your couple of predictions here. So the first one was...
I don't feel like I'm wrong in the purposeful going back in time.
They purposefully went back in time,
because they had already gone forward in time, but they didn't mean to go back to 1869. They thought they were going to 1860.
They also thought they were going to Naples. So not only did they not go purposefully to this place, they didn't even go here on purpose.
I still get the half point for Charles Dickens.
You do get the half point for Charles Dickens. I will also say that I'll give you the half point for the other one because you had described a disease that was bringing back the dead. It wasn't a disease, it was aliens. And I'll let you know now, just to help you with future guesses. Much like the show Ancient Aliens, and the answer to most riddles in this show is aliens.
I'm picking up on that.
Yeah. It is... there's a part of me that kind of wishes they would do more, like, true historicals, because it gets I understand why in the sci-fi show you want to lean on the sci-fi angles, but, you know, there are times where sometimes it would be fun to just see the Doctor deal with a Charles Dickens kind of problem. But instead, we have this, The Unquiet Dead, the story of the Doctor discovering the Gelth, a group of gas aliens that occupied dead bodies.
I'm still at my running total of 3 out of 6 guesses correct.
Yeah, so because I think we'll give you another half point for the disease thing, plus your half point for Charles Dickens, so we're at 3 out of 6.
I'll take it.
I mean, I was impressed that you just pulled Charles Dickens out of thin air.
I mean, there is a specific thing with, like, if you are looking at who is important in history in Britain in that time, the pool becomes increasingly small.
Fair.
And gets smaller and smaller. So if you're not talking about Queen Victoria, you are usually talking about any other, like, a trendsetter. In this case, it is an author. And it's a very easy point. Because if you do that for, like, American Victorian times, you look at people like Edgar Allan Poe or Mark Twain, I think, as well. You can also, I mean, both men, both authors. I was also a literary student, so forgive me.
Alrighty, so when we open on this episode, we get with, we first meet the funeral director dealing with...
Mr. Sneed.
Yeah, Mr. Sneed.
Sounds like a villain.
It does sound like a villain's name.
Mr.
And
Sneed.
I know, I mean, from what I know, this particular episode did go through a lot of drafts, so I'm sure that there's a possibility that at some point he was a bad guy, and he just...
I mean, it wasn't even that he was bad. He just didn't fully understand and was not super duper great.
He's a man that has grown up around dead bodies and has he's a man.
He's a man in Victorian times.
But I think more specifically...
A man in 1869.
I think more specifically, like, his job has him around corpses so often that he's grown kind of glib to a lot of things in general.
I mean, that kind of seems to be the trend for most funeral directors.
Like, he refers to them one point as the stiffs. He seems just kind of chill with, like, chloroforming Rose at one point.
There is an air of disattachment that I know a lot, just based off of my own studies. Lots of funeral directors do have to distance themselves from their subjects because you are surrounded by death. Any other, like, people like you and me, folks that don't have to deal in death, that is like the big ooky spooky scary, like, that's it. Like, when you're gone, we will not see what happens after we die, but funeral directors do. Yeah,
it does lead to one of my favorite little moments in just the very beginning when the grandma first revives and he comes in like, not again.
Yeah, it was in that moment I went, what?
It's like, you seem awfully, you seem weirdly just kind of annoyed by the dead rising as opposed to any other reaction that I might have thought you would have.
I do like, though, that during this time period, too, there was a lot of times where you could be deathly ill, very sick, very slow heart rate, very light breathing, to the point where people would assume you died and then bury you in the ground. But because lots of people are getting buried alive, technically, there was a trend then of having burying people but with easy access to a bell, so that way then if you woke up in a coffin, you could ring the little bell and alert the graveyard attendant that you were alive. Hence the term graveyard shift. A little fun fact. But I did kind of like the play on the Victorian relationship with living and the dead, where it's very possible and plausible that you could have somebody just pop right back up off of the funeral or off of the embalming table in the morgue and just be like, hey, I've been alive this whole time.
Hey, Granny, you're looking aliver than I thought you were.
But yeah, and I also felt like there was a little bit of existentialism, which seems to kind of be an ongoing thread, and I'm trying to...
Yeah, existentialism in what way?
Well, just like Rose is getting existential when they're in the TARDIS and she's talking about how they're going back to Christmas of 1860 and that this is the only Christmas of 1860 that there ever was and ever will be, because once it's gone, it's gone. It'll never happen again. Mm-hmm. And in that moment, her realizing the, like, fragility of time, but then also having the actual Time Lord go, yeah, I guess. Because that fragility and that, like, that thing does not happen to him, nor do I really think it super occurs to him that is something that humans think about and consider.
I mean, it's also just, what is he going to do about it? Like, he can't take all of humanity with him. He can only take the one or two at a time that he normally gets.
Because there's also the part of, like, that's how things are. That's how things are supposed to be.
Yeah.
And he's not cheating necessarily because he's not human, but, like, you could look at it definitely as Rose is kind of cheating the time system by having this, like, get out of jail free card, basically.
Yeah.
It's like free pass to go wherever and whenever she pleases. And a
well, we say wherever and whenever, but they can't do it at the same time. The TARDIS did land in the entirely wrong date and space.
I mean, that's also because they were fucking around, too. After you see what's been going on in this funeral parlor, they go back into the TARDIS, or the scene cuts to them in the TARDIS, just kind of rolling around on the ground laughing. Just, oh, haha. Couldn't press 2 buttons at once. I
mean, we did learn that there's a wardrobe in the TARDIS.
Yeah, with the most impossible directions to get down to.
It's like second on the left, third on the right, fourth door on the left from there, past the bends, fifth on the right. It was something silly like that.
It was insanity. Which, you know, is implemented in the show just to expand on the sheer size of the interior of the TARDIS, despite the fact that I don't think we will ever see anything outside of this one room. Which I think is, I'm making an unofficial prediction.
I mean, I will tell
you don't see any other part, and that's so fucking funny.
I mean, I will say, at least in the classic show, you did. In fact, in the classic show, we've even seen the wardrobe.
Oh, cool.
Now, granted, the TARDIS then looked a lot different. It was a lot whiter.
White? Or
white. White, like the color.
Gotcha.
No, the TARDIS right now is much whiter than it is in the classic series. But yeah, in the original show, there are several points where you see more of the TARDIS. Now, one thing that's interesting about this TARDIS set is that it's a very, like, classic TV set, which is to say that there's only so much wall to the TARDIS.
There are 3 walls in the TARDIS.
Yeah, I mean, it's round, so it's hard to enumerate them, but
there are 3 angles in the TARDIS.
Yeah, so there's conveniently a whole chunk of the TARDIS that you just can't see because that's where the camera has to go.
And the crew.
Yeah. After we leave the TARDIS, we do meet your correct guess that Charles Dickens is in this.
Okay, so fun fact. So the actor that's playing Charles Dickens, Simon Callow, who also in 2004 portrayed Andre in The Phantom of the Opera.
Oh,
so
fun.
there's just something about this particular actor having to deal with ghosts.
Or phantasmagoria, as you said.
Or phantasmagoria is such a good word.
For those of you who do not know, phantasmagoria is the thing that Charles Dickens yells when he sees the ghost in the audience for the first time.
What phantasmagoria is this?
Basically, it means, like, I'm seeing the stuff of dreams, or in this case, I suppose, nightmares.
Can you use it in a sentence?
This phantasmagoria has got me feeling like I'm high.
Excellent. PHANTASMAGORIA.
That is correct. Golf clap for everybody. But I will say the guy playing Charles Dickens is supposedly like a Charles Dickens expert, and he is not. This is not his first time playing Dickens. He's really good at it.
Because I did the ADHD thing where I was watching him going, I know him from something. And as soon as the gears started turning, and as soon as I realized that, or as soon as I remembered what year we were in, I went, there is a good chance that all of these things are overlapping and aligning. And so I know exactly what he's from. And so I grabbed my phone very quick and wrote it down. Doctor Who, The Unquiet Dead, Dickens actor. And then his face popped up, and then I took that name, and then I typed it next to the words Phantom of the Opera, and sure enough, he popped up, and I've never felt more vindicated.
But he's really good. Like, Charles Dickens, I mean, I will say the character is arguably the protagonist in the sense that they are the one really going through the emotional journey of...
Well, because even when he is doing his own show, his own he's not even reading the book. He has his own book memorized at this point.
Yeah, he's been doing it probably, I think if it's 1869, he's probably been doing it for a decade.
But when he first sees the gas ghost start flying around, he's accusing the Doctor of it being an illusion.
A projection on glass is what he accuses the Doctor of doing.
Pepper's ghost.
But I just really want to commend the actor for bringing a lot to that character. Mm-hmm. It was kind of fun watching Charles Dickens deal with a lot of the Scroogeisms, like denying that ghosts exist on Christmas. Like he even gets called, like the Doctor even calls him a humbug at one point.
I can't take part in this. Humbug? Come on, open mind.
I think a kind of an obvious thing to do, but it doesn't make it less fun to have him go through.
Absolutely.
Yeah, his most famous character.
Because also he's, as the Doctor is rattling off some of his favorite books, which that's such an autistic thing to do. But he recounts some of his like favorites, and Christmas Carol is not one of them, which is so nice because Charles Dickens is so flattered that he is naming every other book that he's known for.
He even names a short story, not just a book.
No, that's what because when he's talking about ghosts, he assumes he's talking about Christmas Carol, and he goes, no, short story.
Yeah, I'm blanking on what he said it was. That's a shame.
The Nobleman? No, the Notebook Boy.
The Notebook Boy.
It's something with...
Hi there, I'm the Notebook Boy. I'm here to help you study for your math exam.
Do you want lined paper, dotted paper, plain paper? I've got it all. I'm the Notebook Boy.
And it's all perforated for your use.
Easy to rip out and turn into your teacher or your boss. I like that once he finds out who or like what they are chasing.
The coach is like, should I kick him out, sir? No, he's paying me compliments.
What a mood.
We did, in that scene, we also got confirmation that Rose is, in fact, 19. This is the first time we've heard her age spoken aloud.
And that he does name himself as a guardian, which does further my theory that they have a brother-sister dynamic. I'm still gonna write on that. If there's any kissing or smooching, I'm leaving. Walking out of the podcast.
There's one of Cassie's prophecies. If there is this kissing or smooching, she's out.
No, that is not a prophecy. I don't want it.
When they get to the funeral director's home, one of my favorite little quotes is Dickens says, "What the Shakespeare is going on here," instead of "What the Dickens."
I didn't catch that.
What the Shakespeare is going on here?
That's silly.
Then, after they manage to rescue Rose from the living corpses in the funeral home, Rose and the servant girl Gwyneth have a little conversation.
Because they're talking, they're talking girl talk. They're talking shop. But at one point, Gwyneth says to Rose that she's, quote, got the clothes and the breeding, but you talk like some kind of wild thing, which I adore the off-the-shoulder look on Rose. It is so cute. The year is 1869. That is grossly inappropriate unless you are specifically like a some kind of courtesan.
Now, I will say when she's out in public, she had like a shawl over her.
Even still, she's showing her chest. Like it's the specificity of like the chest being open. And like, granted, there was the trend of you would have corsets and you would have like your bosom up and out. But also, that wasn't super common during the winter time. It's cold. You would be more covered
Christmas
up.
in London. Oof.
Yeah.
Before heating existed. Before indoor heating was the thing.
They
had lanterns.
No, they had the ones that they're like, fuck.
You said a furnace.
Yeah, they're the ones that are attached to the wall that I cannot remember the name of. I just remember being very young and accidentally touching one when it was on.
And in this conversation, we also got an answer to a question that you'd had about Rose's dad. We find out that Rose's dad's been dead for a few years.
Daddy detail. He dead.
Yeah. Well, I guess in this specific moment, he will die in about 100-something years. But to Rose, it was a few years ago.
It was 5 years ago for Rose. Because, Gwyneth can, like, sneak into people's brains. She's like a psychic.
Yeah, she's got like a Baldur's Gate 3 mind parasite and can read your mind.
Which, very cool. I forgot about that at one point, and I went, how does she know about airplanes?
No, metal birds.
Metal birds with people in them. I have that thought every time. I'm in an airplane. That if I was a Dickensian street urchin, which we all know, that's how I see myself. That is my spirit sona.
What's that up in the sky?
It's a bird.
It's a plane. It's a plane.
Yeah, no. Anytime I'm in an airplane, I marvel at the fact that I am flying in a giant steel bird, as if it is my first time on a plane and I've hopped out of a time machine. The year was 1901, but now it is 2023. And I have AirPods and a person sitting next to me with an emotional support peacock. Times is wild.
Basically, her psychic powers are because she grew up on this rift in space-time.
Is it a rift in space-time, or is it...
The Gelth say that they lost that basically they had physical bodies and they lost
the gas ghosts.
Yeah, the gas ghosts. They're called the Gelth. And they lost their bodies in the Time War.
Which also, more Time War.
More Time War stuff. But that also, to me, tells me that they were not only lost their bodies, but were flung back in time. So I do think that the Gelth...
Well, yeah, but then the doctor even says that time isn't linear. So if this is a jumble of time, if this is a Jeremy Bearimy of time.
Yeah, and I guess you could call it a ley line of space and time.
Like a convergence.
Yeah, there's just a general sense of things can happen here. It doesn't really matter what time it's happening, but it's attached to this one space. And so things can come into it and pop out.
Time is happening in one space in one particular way, but it is also happening in another space in a particular way.
Yes.
But those two can have something in common.
Exactly.
Despite them seemingly happening at dramatically different, quote, times.
Yeah, so at one moment the Gelth are dying in the Time War, and the next moment they find themselves in a basement in Cardiff in 1869. And we learn that Gwyneth has basically grown up in this house and has therefore developed this psychic link because she lives on this rift. And so they decide the best thing they can do is hold a seance.
With table wrappers, which, another fun fact, seances are all bullshit.
Yes,
particularly about during this time, though, it was very, very, very common for people to basically rob you out of house and home by convincing you that they could speak to your dearly departed, which, if it's 1860, you've just lost your mother or your child due to consumption. It's very common for people to reach out to commune with the other side, and more often than not, you would have charlatans who would come through and, literally tap on tables. They would have specially made tables so that way they could be easily lifted, and it was a kind of a crummy way of
stealing money from the sad.
Stealing money from people who are mourning and grieving.
Charles Dickens even calls it out a bit in the episode where he says that it's...
Mm-hmm.
Seances? Nothing but luminous tambourines and a squeeze box concealed between the knees.
That was, after Harry Houdini died, that was something that his wife did in the effort to call out people that were frauds. But she did spend a lot of her time trying to find somebody who could potentially reach out to her deceased husband.
Well, this seance is, of course...
a lot of malarkey. That's my bit on Victorian era ghosts.
Well, this seance is not malarkey, as the narrative dictates.
They're also not talking to ghosts. They're talking to alien life forms.
That is true. They are not doing that. They need a person to be a bridge.
A conduit.
A conduit. But Charles is still, razzing them on, and the doctor makes one of my favorite stupid jokes.
Now, don't antagonize her. I love a happy medium.
And that's so dumb, but I like it so much.
Hey, I don't get it.
Because she's being the medium between spirits, and he wants her to be happy. I love a happy medium.
Because, I'm not small. I'm not big. I'm medium. And I'm also happy. Am I also a happy medium?
You are also a happy medium, yes.
Oh.
But yes, the Gelth come through this seance and they say that they basically need to use dead humans to survive outside of this weird gaseous state they find themselves in.
They are the last of their species. There's only 5 or 6.
There's only a few of us and we need your bodies.
Pity us.
Yeah, pity the Gelth, they keep saying. But then the doctor just gives them, just says yes to dead bodies that he has no say over.
Oh, because they're aliens. He's aliens. He doesn't care about people. He doesn't care about the morality. And he even yells at Rose of there's going to be some morale, or I'm forgetting the line.
It's different.
It is different, yeah. It's a different morality. Get used to it or go home.
He's basically accusing her of being like holding their dead sacred for the sake of, abusing the living. And the doctor's like, no. Now, I will say that if they lost themselves in the Time War, I think the doctor might be projecting a little bit too much of his guilt into this scenario.
Oh, absolutely.
Where he's like, this is at least like my people did this war. This is partly my fault. I need to right this wrong. And there's a really easy way to do it. And the only people it really hurts are already dead anyway. So I totally get how it looks from them. But Rose is like, these were people that you are now propping up for an alien race that has nothing to do with them. I do think it's an interesting, moral question. Mm-hmm. Doesn't really get to be explored because it turns out the Gelth just kind of suck.
Because it's not just 5 or 6 Gelth.
You said that you were few in number.
Meaning they plan on killing the entire human race to prop up all of their ghost bodies with. And I don't think it was intentional, knowing Mark Gatiss, but it really feels like a you can't trust the refugees kind of thing.
Ooh,
I know that knowing, Mark Gatiss and his politics, and at least what he states publicly, I really think that was just, we need a resolution to this story. So this is the easiest avenue to go with. But yikes.
Yeah, particularly when they're aliens.
And the episode I thought was doing really well setting up that interesting moral quandary that it instead just kind of sidesteps for the sake of the angels or the devils, because Gwyneth thinks that the Gelth are angels that have been speaking to her. So the Gelth start killing all of the people, and
they don't kill anybody though.
They kill Sneed, and
they threaten to kill Rose and the doctor. Dickens runs out. He freaking goes.
They ignore him for some reason as they back up into this cage.
They're being backed up into the cage. He's on the outside of the group because he's not a target. He passed a stealth check.
And he nopes his way out of there. And I really enjoy the little touch where when he's telling a Christmas story, the part he's talking about is Scrooge seeing Marley's face in the door knocker. But then as he was leaving the house running away from it, the Gelth flies out through the door knocker. Thought that was just a cute little touch. He realizes that because the Gelth are made of gas, he can turn down the flames and turn on the gas, and the rooms will fill up with gas and push the Gelth out of their bodies. The way he describes it is like pushing poison out of a wound.
Which I've never heard pushing poison out of a wound get more poison.
Yeah,
to push out of the poison.
Because the way you suck poison out of a wound is by literally sucking on it. I think what the idea they were going for is that as the gas fills the room, it will enter the bodies, and because one gas can't interact with the other, it pushes them out. I think that's what they were going for.
Like an oversaturation of gas.
Yeah, this episode was doing really well, and then doesn't really fall apart, but it's just got a lot of problems here at the very last.
It's the same issue I've been having thus far with the, this doesn't make sense. I just have to close my eyes and make it make sense.
Yeah.
Because this is, now, granted, this has been the first episode that we've seen where I was genuinely interested in because I love Victorian times. Mm-hmm. So this one did have me interested until things started getting silly.
Where did things get silly for you?
It was the moment that Rose is trying to cover and protect her face from the gas by covering just her mouth and leaving her nose exposed, which just because you got it covered doesn't mean you're completely safe. Cough, cough.
In fairness, she does when she gets out of the cage, she does start having troubles breathing.
I understand that, but still.
No,
she's not... Well, because even, like, Dickens had a rag, which, like, fun fact, if you're ever caught in a burning building, like, you absolutely get as many, like, layers of fabric or material as you can to cover your mouth, because that is going to act as a makeshift filter to prevent any ash and such from getting into your body. I don't know, though, if that also would apply to gas.
Yeah.
Because gas is not particles. It's not stuff in the same way that stuff is. I mean, that's getting a little too sciencey in a TV show.
But talking about this, though, we see that the Doctor can breathe in this gas just fine. Like he
has a new ability unlocked.
We know that he looks human, but as we can see that he does have a different physiology in the sense that he can survive things that humans can't. But the Gwyneth pulls out a little box of matches because she can't send them back. And her plan, I guess, is to burn them all alive.
Was it that, or was it to just keep them there?
I guess it was to keep that. That could be an interesting thought. It's to keep them there because the building crashes down around the rift. Mm-hmm. That would make some sense. I had always just assumed that she was blowing them up, quite literally. If they're although they could fly into the gas lantern, so who knows? Maybe they.
She and the Doctor says that afterwards that she had been dead for about 5 minutes.
Yeah.
After letting the Gelth, like, take her over.
Yeah.
So I'm also wondering if it's a destroy the building, destroy all the bodies, destroy her body. Because at that point, she is the bridge between, like, their plane of existence and ours.
Yeah. But I will say that I was noticing I feel like this episode had really solid pacing.
Yeah.
Especially compared to the first two episodes.
Yeah.
And because of the pacing, it felt a lot shorter. Like, I forgot that it was a 45-minute episode.
Do you think that has to do with the writers or the show now, this being its third episode of this particular series, that it's now finding its feet?
Probably a little column A, a little column B. Because I do think the show is starting to find its stride. Knowing what comes up, I think the show really finds its stride come episode 6.
I do like, in this one very early on, as they're about to exit the TARDIS, Rose goes, "No, you've done this before, it's my turn!" Which made me go, okay, cool, Rose has a personality.
Yeah,
Rose has an attitude on her.
I feel like you would, I felt going into this that you would really like Rose. I felt like you would connect with her in a lot of, like, I don't want to say that you two are, like, the same person, but you two, I think, do have some stuff in common. That will...
What?
I felt like you did.
I finished school.
That is fair, you did.
Barely, but I did it.
So, as we round off the episode, Charles Dickens, the Doctor, and Rose all go to the TARDIS, which the Doctor refers to as his shed, I guess, so he doesn't have to explain what a police box is to someone, 70 years before they exist. And Charles Dickens asks him to explain who the Doctor is, and his answer is that he's just a friend passing through, which I do think describes some of the dynamic of this show very well, which is the Doctor and their companion to sort of pass through a time that they needed to be there for. But then Charles asks if his books last, and I heard you had kind of a response to that.
Well, because, like, peek behind the cast curtain a little bit, I think a lot about, like, longevity after you die, because a lot of times, like, if you are just a person with a family, I mean, you have a home, you go to work, you come home from work, that is your day, you're not doing anything. When you die, you just kind of die. There's really not much of a legacy behind you other than your family, your possessions, and your family's memories, basically.
Unless you did like Charles Dickens did and you make something.
Well, that's the point that I'm getting at, is particularly for artists in particular, do have a much more prominent legacy in that what you made in life after you die those are little itty bitty pieces of you. And those are things that will carry on even long after you've dead, unless, like, it is a physical thing and it's caught in a fire and it's gone and, that's it. That thing dies. But more often than not, particularly if you are, let's say, an author who has sold a couple books, that is something that will persist even after you are gone. Mm-hmm. And so it is something I think about often, just as somebody who would like to leave some form of legacy behind. But yeah, just a little castential moment for you.
Well, this isn't the last time this sort of thing comes up.
Interesting.
But we'll get to that when we get to it.
Oh, but the doctor does say that Charles Dickens's books last forever.
I mean, I can't imagine A Christmas Carol going anywhere.
No, because you can even think about something like A Tale of Two Cities or Oliver Twist, which, those things have their time. It is a recurring thing. They come and go. I know that I use the term Dickensian street urchin at least once a day, usually referencing myself, but that's not the point. The term Dickensian street urchin also kind of disattaches itself from its root.
I mean, we've been doing a voice forum the whole podcast. A cough forum the whole podcast.
The more you talk about me, the more I gain life. I'm like fairies.
I do believe in Dickensian street urchins. I do.
Thank you.
I'm all better now. I'm alive.
Then we end off with the TARDIS fading off and Charles getting to look at it all like bright-eyed and bushy-faced. And
he's so happy.
He is so happy. He even walks away from the TARDIS going, God bless us, everyone.
Well, because he even says, he thought he knew everything, but he realized he's only just beginning to know everything.
Yep. Well, just beginning, and then he'll be dead in a year, according to the doctor.
Hey, you know what? That's fine. It's just a nice little reminder.
Yeah. So, now that we're another step into our journey, how are you feeling about it so far?
I still am left with a little bit of, I am not 100% sold yet, and I don't really fully get it, but I think I'm getting it, if that makes sense.
Yeah. Well, especially now that you've been here, you definitely start to get more of a feel of the scope of what the show can do.
Well, yeah, and the fact that it has prompted this conversation about existentialism and legacies, and that is something. It feels like when you are at a networking event and they have icebreakers. It kind of feels like an icebreaker for a much bigger conversation. Mm-hmm. And I'm eager to see, because we're only episode 3, dude.
Yeah, exactly.
I'm eager to see what conversations and what other big conversations we'll be having, just based off of the morality and ethics that are put in front of us via the Doctor and Rose.
Yep. Well, we will find out if there are any more questions next time, because next time is our first 2-parter that we're going to be looking at here on Who Is My Doctor?
Who is my doctor?
Who is indeed? Wow. Can you believe we went through that whole episode without once joking about it being 1869? It even featured a guy with Dick in his name. Well, we promise to never make that mistake again, and you can hold us accountable for that by subscribing to this podcast. If you like what you heard, please share us with your fellow Whovians, give us a like, a thumbs up, 5 stars, whatever that silly old algorithm is asking for these days. You can also follow us on Twitter, Blue Sky, and Instagram for other updates at WimDpod. That's WIMDPOD. This is the last of our premiere trilogy, but we will be back next week with our first 2-parter, The Aliens of London and World War III. We plan to post an episode every Tuesday, so we will see you then, because Tuesdays are now Who's Days.